Every now and then, a car that defies every rule is born.
Coolant is a necessary fluid in today's vehicles. Not only does it keep the engine from overheating, but it also keeps the fluid from freezing in cold weather. Without the right amount of coolant, the engine can suffer irreparable damage. When coolant is leaking from a hose, it becomes difficult to ensure the fluid levels are correct. For this reason, you need to know why coolant leaks from the hoses. We cover the top reasons and show you how to fix the problem. At the end of our guide, you also get some of your top coolant questions answered. Today only on Trinix Auto Fix. Causes of coolant leaking from hose. The most common reason that coolant leaks from the hose is because of damage. The hose becomes cracked or broken. Otherwise, coolant can leak because the clamp torque isn't sufficient or the clamp is defective. Many problems with the hoses start out because the system overheats. Let's dive into these issues more fully. 1. Cracked or damaged hose. The most obvious reason that coolant would be coming from a hose is if it has become damaged. The hoses are durable but not indestructible. The constant heat and wear can take a toll on the material. At first, the damage may just be a small crack. However, left unchecked, a hole can quickly form that would cause all of the coolant to flow out. 2. Not enough clamp torque. The hoses are held on by clamps. Each of these clamps must be tightened to a specific torque to keep the hose in place. If you haven't applied enough torque, the clamp can become loose, leading to coolant leaking out. You will see moisture coming from the hose where it meets the clamp. 3. Hose clamp faulty. Even if you've applied the right amount of torque, the clamp can still be defective. Over time, the metal clamp starts to degrade and deform. If it's not applying the right amount of pressure due to defects, the coolant will start to leak. Again, this moisture will be seen around the clamp. 4. Coolant system overpressure or overheating. Numerous defects can lead to a cooling system that runs too hot or is pressurized too high. When either of these situations occurs, the hose can blow out and cause a leak. One of the most prevalent issues is when a hose gets kinked. While this won't immediately cause damage, it does reduce coolant flow, leading to an overheating engine. That constant pressure takes a toll on the motor and the hoses. Eventually, something is going to blow, including one of the hoses. How to fix coolant leaking from hose. When repairing the cooling system, it's imperative that you fix all leaks. Otherwise, the system could still overheat from a lack of fluid and you could end up dealing with massive engine failure. Some of these fixes are simple to complete and others require advanced skills or equipment. Only perform the work you feel qualified to do. 1. Tighten hose clamp. It's important that all of the hose clamps are only tightened as outlined by manufacturer specs. You don't want to over-tighten any of the clamps, just as much as you don't want to leave them loose. Either situation can lead to leaks. Check the service manual for the proper procedure for your vehicle. In general, the right way to tighten a screw-type hose clamp is to apply pressure, but not too much that the rubber outer shell of the hose comes through the screw slot. If you go that tight, you could cut the hose. Tighten the hose and run the engine. While it's running, watch the area around the clamp to ensure nothing is leaking. If it's still leaking, you may need to move on to the next step. 2. Replace hose clamp. If the clamp can't be tightened enough to stop the leaks, you may need to replace it. While clamps are made to last a long time, they aren't immune to defects and wear. Thankfully, most hose clamps are relatively inexpensive. You won't break the bank to get some new clamps. 3. Replace hose. If the hose is damaged or torn, you must replace it. Some hoses are simple to replace and others can be more difficult. Only tackle what you feel comfortable with. We recommend reading the service manual to get the appropriate procedure for your vehicle. Otherwise, you could follow these generic steps. Park on level ground. Put the car in park and set the emergency brake. Identify the radiator hose that's leaking. You can find the leak by running the engine and watching the hoses. Drain the coolant before removing the hose. Do this by opening the petcock found on the lower portion of the radiator. Place a bucket underneath to catch the coolant. Once the coolant has been removed, loosen up the clamps holding the radiator hose in place. Carefully work the hose off of the clamps. If you can't get the hose off easily, Use a knife to slice the hose at each end. Take off the clamps. Inspect them while they are off. If they are worn, now is also a good time to replace them. Push the new hose in place. Ensure it fits snugly and sits firmly at each attachment point. Slide the new clamps in place and tighten them to manufacturer specs. Close the petcock on the radiator. Fill the radiator with coolant. Make sure you use the right mixture and time. You also want to research how much your vehicle uses before you get started so you get it full. You also need to bleed the cooling system. Replace the radiator cap and start the engine. With a close eye on the hoses, allow the engine to reach operating temperature. If leaks still occur, shut the car down and repair them. Recheck coolant levels again after the vehicle cools down. You may need to top it off slightly. Radiator hoses may need to be replaced every 4 years or 60,000 miles. By regularly inspecting them, you can prevent big leaks from happening. 4. Fix overheating issue. If the hoses or clamps fail because of overheating, you need to resolve this situation first. The engine could overheat because of low coolant levels, which is easy to fix. It could also be due to a mechanical failure, such as a defective thermostat. One often overlooked problem is a kinked hose. When a hose gets kinks in it, the coolant can't flow as it should, leading to an overheated engine. High quality hoses don't tend to kink, which is why it's best to invest in something durable. If your car hoses are kinked, the best solution is to replace them with something better. 5. Visit a mechanic. The cooling system is sophisticated and important. Therefore, if you aren't sure exactly what you are doing, it's best to leave the work to professionals. To start, an auto repair shop can handle the diagnosis for you, and it usually won't cost more than an hour of labor. If you don't have the equipment to handle the repair, you can also get an estimate from the repair shop. Choose a mechanic that offers a warranty on the work and read through online reviews for peace of mind. While you may spend a little more for a high-quality mechanic, it's worth every penny to protect the car engine from failure.